now we can go to Parliament because David Seymour and Chloe Swarbrick are joining us. Well, that would be weird. That would be weird.
See, mate. Sorry.
Great start to the year from me. Good to see you both. Thanks for being with me. Why don't we start with the polls? Chloe, what's happening with the polls? Why does everyone love Winston?
Ryan, I think we all know that this year is going to be a bit of a marathon with that election date being set out at the 7th of November. And look, you'll hear me say exactly the same thing whether the polls are up or down for us, which is that people shouldn't just watch the polls, but realise that they are the polls. There is a sense of agency here. These things are not set in stone. So really looking forward to election year. It's an incredible opportunity during a campaign when New Zealanders are actively paying attention and every possible potential future for our country is on the table. So let's have a meaningful debate about what it looks like to build serious climate resilience and ensure that everybody is able to get ahead in this thing that we call the economy.
David, is ACT going to do a little bit of a rebrand this year away from the treaty principles stuff to more of like the economy and tax reform and bloated bureaucracy?
We always do both because they both come from the same basic principle that we're all human beings, we all deserve equal dignity and equal rights, and you can do a lot more of that if you don't have the government taking your money and making red tape and rules that make it harder to build your future for yourself and your family and your community. So look, I don't see it as a change. What I do see is a set of values that we've been the most consistent on, and they're becoming more and more relevant because people are very frustrated. The cost of living is still a challenge. You see inflation tick up. There's a lot of demand to get government smaller and more efficient and to treat everyone the same. So we'll be doing exactly the same thing because we've always been founded on a set of principles that don't change.
Freedom for everyone unless you want to build apartments in Epsom.
Well, actually...
we'll probably be doing the best jokes too, which apparently won't be difficult.
Oh, settle down. We've been here 5 minutes, guys. Come on, let's be cordial. David, do you think we can trust Winston not to go with Labour?
Well, it's always a question, right? I mean, there's a bit of a lucky dip there. You might win or you might get the booby prize. But at the end of the day, I just come back to what are those principles and values. New Zealanders have a right and maybe a responsibility to make a difference in their own lives. And you're going to be able to do that if you have less red tape, less regulation, less government waste, more opportunity for people to make the most of their time on earth. We just stick to those values, and what will be in terms of politics, polls will go up and down, people have a go at each other, try and make jokes as you've seen, but whatever.
Yeah. Chloe, does the Greens have any, because you've spoken a lot about Winston, about New Zealand First and this sort of evil coalition situation going on. Would you, does the Greens rule people out? Have you ruled out propping up a government that had Winston in it, for example, or ACT, or...?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, it's just really important that people measure politicians and political parties not only by what they say, but their track record and what they do. And I just actually really like to challenge that point on all of these things that we've supposedly said about the coalition. I actually really pride myself on the fact that when we are talking about politicians, we tend to talk specifically about what it is that they're doing and the impacts of their actions. So it's not just this kind of tit for tat and politicians going at each other, which I hear loud and clear from New Zealanders across the country, that they're not really that interested in. And that's why I'm also really proud that over the last 18 months, I know that it's been really nerdy stuff, but we have released really substantive policies to actually address substantially lowering our cost of living.
Yeah, but you talked about them needing to find a spine. I mean, let's not pretend that we're all suddenly holier than thou.
No, let's be clear. That point in Parliament was that if we can find 6 of 68 government MPs with a spine, that was a call to action, a call for one to step into their empathy and their courage and to do the right thing.
No, fair. But just to the question, does the Green Party rule out working with any of these guys, or would you happily?
Policies, but hey, there you are.
Would the Greens rule out working with any of these parties, or do you don't rule anyone out?
At this point in time, look, it's all on the table, and we've always been really clear that we will work with absolutely anyone to get things across the line that will make life better for New Zealanders. We've actually seen that in the past when the Greens have worked from opposition with the National Party on an MOU to warm up Kiwi homes. But I think it's pretty clear where our allegiances are, and it's not with political parties that are pledging to continue to rip up our conservation estate that see more value in our forests being cut down than in providing us with fresh air.
David, Trump has last night pulled out of Paris again. Do you think we should do the same?
Well, it has to change or New Zealand will have to leave. We will not be able to afford, no matter who's in government, to send billions of dollars overseas to sort of atone for our sins. It needs to reflect that New Zealand farmers are the most efficient in the world. You were just hearing about that in the segment before this. It makes no sense to have an agreement that forces us to reduce the amount of farming that happens in New Zealand, so the same consumers, maybe those Americans in Texas you're talking about, can go and buy their beef from farmers that actually produce more emissions into the atmosphere. So, you know, that it has to change. We have to leave. That's been a consistent position from ACT by a long time. But hey, we've made progress. You know, getting those methane targets down, as we've done just in the last 6 months.
David, can I ask you a question?
And it's something. Can I just say, talking about being principled and consistent, I was the only one that voted against those targets back in 2018. 6 years later, the ACT Party in government has prevailed, and it turns out we were right about that.
Can I ask you both actually just a quick question? Is climate change making our weather events worse?
Clearly, obviously, factually, evident.
David?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's true, but the question is, what do you do about it?
Well, yes. So that's what I want to ask Chloe.
While everyone else's emissions rise.
Chloe, that's the point, isn't it?
Being practical about, I'm having trouble with my earpiece here.
So I want to ask Chloe, David. Chloe, that he's got a point, doesn't he? That everyone, even your political opponents, agree that climate change is making the weather events worse. But it's one thing for us to take action, but if no one else is doing it with us and the big emitters aren't doing it with us, then what's the point?
Well, that's the point of the Paris Agreement, is all 198 countries that are signed up are all their bit, which are our nationally determined contributions. And I'm actually really glad that for the first time we have a government official, the Deputy Prime Minister, acknowledging the fact that under that nationally determined contribution, if we are not making the effective effort here at home to reduce our emissions, then we are on the hook to pay other countries to reduce their emissions. That is bonkers, and that is the point that the Greens have been making consistently for several years now. And I'm really proud of the fact that we managed to get Treasury at the end of last year to commit to make transparent the impacts of the government's decisions to shred climate action here at home, and how that means that we're on the hook for that liability internationally. But all of that said, Ryan, this is about building our own domestic resilience. It's about realising that in this country, we used to make things, and we can do that again. We can revitalise our regions, we can guarantee good green jobs if we have a government that takes responsibility and actively stimulates that manufacturing, as well as making sure that we're building the things that we need here, which are warm Kiwi homes, a resilient electricity network, and infrastructure, particularly public transport infrastructure, the likes of the trains that Winston Peters likes to talk about.
All right, we have to leave it there, guys.
Fund.
We're out of time. David, I apologise for your
Good morning.
air issue. We will make sure we get that sorted for next week. Chloe Swarbrick and David Seymour from Parliament.